When you're in sales, you won't go too far if you don't understand how marketing works. At least that's what I believe. If I'm being honest, I became a big fan of marketing after I watched Mad Men, and so did a lot of people I know. Today's guest is a marketing leader who reminds me of one of my college mates. I've known him for over a year, and one of the greatest minds in marketing I know of. If you think I'm exaggerating, he studied marketing at IIM Lucknow. He was published in Your Story last year and started his career with Hindustan Times. Today, he's the vice president of marketing at PayU, a fintech company that provides payment technology to the online merchants. He attributes his ability to switch different roles and grasping business faster to his formal education. He loves to jog, reading, a big fan of Michael Lewis, author of Money Bag and Blindside, as we all know. If you're in sales and have been itching to get into marketing, you should not miss this episode as Shobhit reveals his hiring strategy. All the SDRs who are watching, if you're looking for an alternate career path, then this one is for you. Today's topic is need of the hour, and whether you're in sales or marketing, you are in for a treat. So, welcome, Shobhit, to the episode 10 of Sales Spin. We are really excited to have you. And this is the first time we're actually having somebody who's not from sales on the show. So, this is definitely going to be exciting. I'm sure people are going to be looking forward to this. I think you have chosen a very interesting topic, and I do appreciate that because that's something which I also believe a lot of folks, especially the one who are watching this episode, most of our audience is kind of sales, SDR and sales leaders, and pretty much everybody in my network, right? But at the same time, I think we kind of tend to ignore the marketing side, and I think, and I think there has been always a rift between sales and marketing. I think we're going to talk more about it. But I think that, before we dive into that, I would like you to announce the topic. What are you going to talk about, and why should we be excited to listen to that?
Sure. So what I want to talk about is conversational sales and marketing.
Okay.
One of my experiences both as a buyer and as a marketer in the Indian SaaS space is that SDRs, typically SDRs who born and brought up in India, that's one aspect that they really struggle as compared to their global peers with. When they reach out to their prospects or customers, their ability to strike up conversations just digitally through LinkedIn or through email, I think it fades as compared to some of the SDRs that I've interacted with in the US. And I think as sort of the SaaS ecosystem in India matures, I really feel like this is something that marketers and sales leaders really need to focus on to ensure that our teams are as competitive as teams anywhere else in the world.
Wow, I think you touched a kind of nerve there, because I kind of believe the same. And I think a few days ago I posted about the same thing, that no SaaS company in India would actually go about and teaching the Indian reps as to how to really talk to, let's say, prospects outside the country. It could be not just necessarily US, but let's say Europe or maybe other countries, right? Because the way other prospects are brought up, right? It's the same logic, right? For example, you and me are probably sitting in the same city. You know what I'm going through. I know what you're going through. We're in the same country. But if I were in a different country, the tables would turn, right? Even if you say, hey, I understand, I know that you're saying for the sake of, but you really don't understand what I'm going through, right? Because I'm the one who's feeling that heat every day. So yeah, I think bang on, you touched a nerve. So yeah, let's talk more about it.
Sure. Is there like a specific question you want me to answer? Or?
Sure. To tell us, so consider me that I don't know anything about the conversation sales or marketing. And like you said, the obvious fact that Indian reps kind of struggle with making that rapport, making that conversation with reps outside the country. So where do you think, let's say if you were to teach me as a sales leader, and let's say assuming that I don't know anything about it, where do you want me to start?
Sure. I mean, I think let's kind of first establish what conversational sales is as opposed to, traditional sales that we follow. So conversational sales or conversational marketing is where instead of the standard, I will pitch and you will respond, I will pitch and you will respond, I will negotiate and you will respond. It's like a table tennis match where you're sort of constantly lobbing volleys at the counter and hoping something comes back. This is just on a sort of more natural, organic conversation between two people, like we're having right now. So, you're not pitching anything to me. I'm not trying to sell something to you. We're just two people speaking right now, waiting for the other person to pitch in where they can. So it's sort of like a paradigm shift or a philosophy change of, how do you initiate conversation itself? And that's I think is very useful because you are talking to very important people, very busy people, inundated with a lot of pitches. If you cannot get their interest, cannot get them to open up to you, the odds that anything's going to happen down the line in terms of deals and closures is next to zero. I think where marketing kind of comes in, and to give some sort of historical background, the term became really popular thanks to somebody named Dave Gerhardt, who is for marketers. He is extremely, very influential marketer right now. He's for an organization called Drift, which incidentally happened to have a which kind of helps with conversational marketing. It's kind of like an intercom alternative. It's a chat tool, which communications tool. So, so he really popularized this term. But it's important to understand that conversational marketing is not just having a chatbot on your site or a tool on your site which sort of consolidates all communications. So I don't want somebody to walk out of this and saying, yeah, like if you buy Drift or if you buy Intercom, we'll be doing conversational marketing. That's just infrastructure. That's just tooling. But the key component of conversational marketing and sales is that the customer always feels like they're having one organic conversation with the organization that you're representing. Some of the basic stuff that I've seen implemented, which works. For instance, if you're sending marketing emails, don't send it as marketing at XYZ organization. Send it from the name of your SDRs, with a photograph and a email ID which they can get back to. Even simple things like this. All what marketing is supposed to take care of. But I think as a salesperson, still a lot of onus on you to have these very organic conversations, because that cannot be automated. I don't think there's technology that exists which can organically communicate with a person at a sort of level of intelligence.
I know what you mean. So I think I'm not sure if any companies are doing it. I'm pretty sure there are companies who are doing it even right now, where they're sending, let's say, the email blast coming from marketing at, let's say, xyz.com. And I think one of the things which I personally believe is I want to understand more about the buying side rather than the selling side. So I'm someone who understands, that's what I do. That's what I do, and invest a lot of my time in understanding how a buyer thinks. So for example, if I'm a buyer and if I get such an email today, I would automatically know this is a marketing email. This is something which nobody wrote in its person, right? There's probably a robot behind it. That's what I even tell my reps, right? For example, all your email, even though sometimes they're automated, they should actually give a feeling that they are not automated. And there are tons of ways you can go about it. Like you said, if it has a picture on it, if it has a name on it. So instead of going from marketing, if it goes from Shobhit, it actually looks more credible. And correct me if I'm wrong, we're not, when we say that, have all these checks in place, it does not mean that we are trying to deceive the prospect. We're just trying to give that feeling, because like I said, we were thinking from both sides. We do want to have the prospect as a customer eventually, and we do want them to feel that they actually did not buy a product which where there are no humans behind it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're completely right. And I think, look, I don't think there is, as a buyer, I mean, maybe because I'm a marketer, it's true, but I feel like most buyers, they are aware that a lot of the emails that you see coming from like a Rahul Wadhwa or a XYZ, they are essentially automated emails. But ultimately, it is the content that we respond to as buyers. It doesn't matter whether an actual human typed it out or whether that's an automated send. But I have seen actual humans type out more robotic emails than marketing automation may, and the other way around as well. So it's really the content which matters. And I think it's a game, or it's a sort of process of both coaching SDRs as well as marketers on how to write copy or emails or voicemail messages which are conversational in tone and not pitches.
Fair point. I think you raise another good point. I'm going to come back to that. Before that, I think I want to take an example. So recently I canceled a subscription of a service which I use. And I haven't opened any of the email, but I'll tell you the story behind it. So the moment I cancel, I think next day I got an email asking for the feedback so that, they can improve, which is pretty normal, right? You would expect that email. But I think there is something to that email, right? And first of all, it came from a person. I'm pretty sure it came from a person. It did not came from a cancellation at xyz.com. So it felt personal to me. I was able to see the subject line, and I knew what was the context based on the preview on the first line. Then I got two more emails from the CEO, which I know, of course, are automated, but they do not feel automated. They feel like the CEO has actually written himself. It feels personal. I feel like responding, and I'm gonna do that. That's how the good copy is.
And I think the one thing that you may not have noticed is, I think somewhere in that copy there would have been something which talks about you.
Of course.
Which, when you talk about conversational sales and marketing, one thing that differentiates conversations from sales pitches is conversations. If you were to meet somebody in an airport or on an airplane or in a bar or in a function or something, you want to strike up a conversation with them, you don't go to them and say, I am so and so, I am India's largest AI platform, I have more than so and so. You don't go on a 5-minute rant about yourself. You maybe introduce yourself and then kind of automatically lead it to something that you want them to respond to you. Right? Like you can say, yeah, hey, I work in XYZ company. Where do you work? Or what brings you here? And I think that's where conversations are very, very important, is you use very, very widely known things about human psychology to get people to
Exactly.
open up about themselves. These are not hidden secrets anymore. We've kind of really, I think as a group of people, we've really uncovered this a lot by now. But the key is your copy should lead to the person wanting to talk about things that interest them and not things which are important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the good thing which has happened probably in the last 1 or 2 years is a lot of sales leaders have kind of emphasized on this, and that you should always be thinking about the buyer. You should always the pitch should never be all about you. The pitch should be all about how it will make the other person feel. So I think I think one of the classic example I can see is from Shark Tank, right? So if you listen to those pitches, right, those are all about bringing you into the story. Imagine you're walking down the road, and imagine you're driving, and you have a flat tire. What do you do? So it kind of forces you to think about it, and it actually kind of breaks that cliche pitches where they have like 30-second pitches. I think that's probably another thing which probably got originated, I don't know how many years back, where people said, hey, give me a 30-second pitch. And then in those cases, people were kind of forced to think only about themselves and not about the buyer, because they thought if they start thinking about the buyer, they would have very less time to actually talk about their own product. So I don't know. You talked about copy. I think that's a very interesting topic. I think that's another thing which I'm reading in my free time, like really finding out how I can write a better copy. And I think that also I'll give a lot of credit to Josh Braun. That's one of the sales leader I admire, because that helped me understand the whole thought process behind the buyer, the books I should read, the copies. And I think I would give it to you. I think this session would feel a little empty if I don't talk about Mad Men. I'm sure you have watched it. Have you?
I've seen like 2 episodes, so
Okay,
I'm
two
not
episodes.
like totally got it. I mean, it's just never got the time to see it.
Okay, you must watch it. I mean, it's set in 60s. I'm sure 60s or 70s. It's a classic. I think I've finished like 5 or 6 seasons. It just gets a little long, so that's why I'm not able to spend a lot of time. But it's a classic. I think I have learned a lot from Mad Men. Like, how can you write, for example, I'm sure since you are a marketer, I'm sure nobody understands this more than you. How can you write an ad copy in less than 5 words and still instigate those emotions which somebody would not be able to even do, even if they write like a page? So how do you do that? How does marketeers, let's say, able to uh, bring that emotion in as less words possible?
Look, I think honestly, I have never approached it as a 5 words or less or a 10 words or less kind of a challenge, right? I feel like if you box the activity itself without focusing on the outcome, then everything is going to be a failure. So everything is about the outcome. So if I'm writing copy and I have to kind of put myself in the shoes of the person who's going to read it and say, am I trying to make them happy? Am I trying to get them excited? Am I trying to make them afraid? Whatever, what is the emotion or response I'm trying to evoke out of it? And I mean, generally, yes, 5 words is better than 6 words is better than 7. The briefer the copy, the sort of less complicated language that you can use. So that comes second, the sort of word limit and readability level. But fundamentally, are you able to evoke a strong response is the first thing that I would go for. So, you kind of write down your copy. You before you start, you try and capture, like, in a word or two, or maybe in a sentence, that this is what I'm best case scenario, I'm hoping if Rahul reads this, this is how Rahul feels. And then you kind of write it down, step back, read it, figure out, do you feel the way you want Rahul to feel at the end of it? If you don't, rewrite it, maybe run it by 2 or 3 people and say, how does this make you feel? Does it make you feel excited? Does it make you sad? I think that's the process. Like if I don't think marketing is about 5 words or 50 words or 500 words. That's a very transactional activity.
I think we can probably start with that answer again, where we're talking about like how 7 words are better than 6. 6 words are 7 better than 7.
Yeah. So I think, like I was saying, I don't think the answer to how or what makes good copy is the word limit, but it's really the emotion that it drives in the person who reads it. So if I am writing good copy, I have to kind of capture and say, this thing that I'm writing, do I want to make people happy? Do I want to make them excited? Do I want to make them afraid? Write down what I have thought of, test it for myself first, say, does this leave you with the emotion that you wanted to evoke? If possible, test it with a couple of other people, see if the emotion you're getting is right. And then you can sort of trim down the word length. Word length or readability, etc. These are sort of traits that can be imbibed. But I think what is really hard to do in copy or any marketing messaging is the emotion. I think one very common example that I use is, so like a lot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, while they're incredibly popular, the reason why they're not at, let's say, the peak of cinematic achievement is because they don't leave you feeling anything. You kind of watch the whole movie, you have like you oscillate between like a little excited, a little bored, and a little happy, and a little sad. But compare that to let's say something like a Schindler's List, which leaves you just absolutely broken, right? Like you watch the movie and there is absolutely, or something like the first Jurassic Park movie, which leaves you completely on just this sense of wonder, or like the first Star Wars movie when it came out, like it just gives you this sense of,
or maybe Harry Potter.
Yeah, possibly, right? Like, so whatever works, but I think that's the difference between like a great story and a good story. A good story just kind of leaves you feeling, yeah, I mean, this is good, but what's the big deal?
I know what you
a
mean.
great story, really.
Shobhit, I think I'm gonna circle back to the first question I had. I think we talked a little bit about conversational marketing and sales. Where do you think sales or marketing leaders can maybe train their reps or maybe subordinates, whoever is working on the front line, to become more conversational?
I mean, I think one is just at the hiring process itself. Hire people who are good conversationalists. Hire people with background in jobs which require them to be in conversations more than on basis of the degree they have or the organizations they work in. I think one of the major reasons I mentioned usually, why are folks in the US so good at this is because from the time that they're 14 or 15 or 16, they work jobs in retail, they work jobs in customer service. They may have worked at a restaurant, or they may work at a car rental service, may have worked at something else. So that involves them speaking with customers day to day. Knowing how to deflect angry people, knowing how to excite bored people. That innate sense kind of gets instilled on them. Unfortunately, in our country, people get first professional job once they're done with like all their schooling and education at the age of about 23, 24. So yeah, I mean, I would say like if I was hiring for folks, I would value background in things like, somebody who may have worked in retail or a call center or maybe hospitality, jobs which require people to interact with people on a day-to-day basis, develop certain people skills. I think that makes people a lot better conversationalists. In the interview process itself, I feel like sales leaders and marketing leaders focus too much on, what was your metric, how much of your target did you attain, was it 150, was it 180, who's your customer who can vouch for you. I mean, it's a great thing, I'm sure, but ultimately none of these convince you whether or not this person can have a good conversation.
True.
So a good test is, when I do a lot of interviews, one of the first questions I ask myself is, I spoke with this person for 30 to 60 minutes. Do I feel drained at the end of this, or do I feel energized at the end of this? And this is the same person and the same energy that I'm going to be putting out in front of my customers if I went and hired him or her. So I think maybe use those kind of tests to see, is this a person who can
No, I think that's
engage?
That's an interesting approach, Shobhit. I think I really like that. In fact, you talked about something like, and that is totally true in terms of like how sales leader, for example, I know would always ask this question, hey, tell me about your quota achievement in the last 6 months or so. Uh, I think I never asked that question. And I'm not saying I never asked that question. I don't ask that question anymore because I know one, people are under so much pressure, especially reps, that one, you're kind of forcing people to lie, and so a lot of sales leader would not appreciate the truth. So let's say a rep would probably come up and say, hey, you know what, I haven't met my quota, let's say 3 in 6 months. For a lot of sales leader, that will be like a, that'll not actually sit well with them. They'll be like, I only want top performers. So one of the thing again, they have to understand is not everybody's top performer. I think that there has been studies in US where they say only 70% or 2/3 of the team is kind of meeting the target. So one, you will never get the talent. But yeah, I think your point is right. I have hired people in the past based on their quota achievement, and they were not able to perform. Versus when I had people based on, so I had a couple of people who have no background in sales. One of the person actually traveled for 2 years, took a break because he wanted to chat with people. He wanted to understand the culture. He had a better understanding of human world than anybody who has done the SDR role for 2 years. So I think what you said is bang on. Uh, how can you help, let's say, make the, let's say, leader shift from this? Because understand, this is something which they've been doing for, and this is also human, right? So for example, if I'm doing something for a while and you tell me, Rahul, that is totally wrong, you should do this, I would actually take some time to adjust to that, and I'm not sure if I will be able to take that feedback as well. So why do you think, while I understand right now after listening to you that this is important, how can you make founders and other early stage founders or other early stage, sales leader who are setting up the team understand that this is crucial?
I mean, look, I think the sort of primary motivation for following, what is the beaten path is this conversion. So, why do sales leaders continue to ask quota attainment is because that's, you're kind of de-risking yourself and saying, look, I'm hiring this person who used to do 120% in the last company. So the odds that they will fail are way lower than somebody who's doing 80%, right? Like it's just, you are sort of, for lack of a better word, protecting your backside if things go down, not the way you want them to. So I don't think this is big. So one is, definitely, I think if you're a founder or a leader, encourage like your hiring managers or your team to hire for attitude and skills. And in a way, if you're a founder, especially, hire people that, and I think this is from a marketing standpoint, I always feel very key is, I don't think many sales leaders look to hire for a certain brand or a image that they want to convey to their customers. So sales leaders hire or pack teams with people who they feel can meet quotas. But and a sort of way to look at it is, so sure, like, if you have a top performer whose sort of core tactic is just sending a lot of emails, they may not be great emails, they may send a lot of emails every day or make a lot of cold calls every day, and 1 out of 30 connects and at least to a deal. So the sales organization really happy. But what about the 29 cold calls that didn't connect? This person left like a really poor impression, especially if you're a startup, right? Like if you're a startup, the first time that a very important person in the industry heard of you was this very poor pitch, and that's the first impression that they will hold of you till somebody kind of comes and changes that. So I don't know if people really kind of weigh the pros and cons of that. So I would rather, I mean, it's easy for me to say I'm not a founder or a sales leader, but I would say if I was to hire, I would hire 5 or 6 people who I feel like even when they don't convert calls, are ultimately leaving unclosed prospects with the right impression about my company and the right impression about my brand and product. So, if you hire guys who are good at conversational skills, they've not irritated or annoyed somebody, not, and maybe that's the thing, right? Like, I think maybe it starts on the top, or if you start attaching like a numerical value to it, most SaaS companies today, I think early stage SaaS companies don't have addressable market of greater than, let's say, 1,000 companies. So I would say largely a good SaaS company has no more than 1,000 customers that they could potentially sell to.
Right.
And if you have a rep who managed to annoy 5 in the first quarter, attach a value to it and say, look, is this the outcome you really want?
No, that's an interesting point. Shobhit, thank you so much. What we're going to do next is we're going to have a rapid fire for you. Okay, I hope you're ready.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with simple, and again, this is going to get tougher as we move along. But again, at any point of
Yeah.
time, don't feel the urge that you have to respond immediately. You can take a couple of seconds, but I think that's what will make it fun. Okay. Your favorite movie?
Apocalypse Now.
Oh, nice.
It's
Uh,
a war movie.
yep. Your least favorite thing about sales?
I think the lack of linkage of outcome to effort. You can work very hard on a deal or a customer and it can totally bomb, and you can just send a lazy first touch email, but the customer just happens to be ready to buy your product and it'll work. So I find that pretty annoying.
Okay, nice. You were to choose your career again, sales or marketing?
Marketing for sure.
Okay. Why does marketing get a bad name?
Because it's not measurable, and I think we live in a world where if you can't measure something, it has no intrinsic value.
Oh, okay. This is something which is kind of exciting. One tip, if you could actually give to sales or marketing leaders to make the sales and marketing coordination better.
I think just give things time. Nothing in marketing. Good marketing does not change overnight, and it takes time. You give your marketing organizations and leadership time to show results. Quiz them on the plan and not the immediate outcomes.
Fair enough. Fair enough. A lot of viewers, a lot of people who are watching this could be SDRs and could be also sales leader, SDR managers. And I think as a leader myself, I have always often struggled that my reps sometimes want to switch to marketing. But honestly, if you ask me, I've only had like a couple of reps who were able to do that. And there are only a handful of organizations which kind of support this movement. I think a lot of SDRs are kind of getting mature enough to understand if their company is not able to, let's say, give them that opportunity, they should look for that opportunity outside. How can an SDR prepare themselves for an entry level position, let's say in marketing, if they were to?
Look, I think the one thing that you have to do is really use the opportunity of being an SDR to understand the product and your customer segment really well. I don't think attaining your numbers or having a very good pitch or bringing in the best customers is going to make that switch. But I think what would make a good marketing leader stand up and take notice is if you are able to bring in insight from the front lines that the marketing team could never have. So insight is, I think, a big motive, driver for being a good marketing person. So use that, try and understand trends of when 4 people said yes to you, what was common to them, and 3 people said no to you, what was common to them, and try and identify those trends and share that with the marketing leadership. So I think from an aptitude standpoint, that's very important. I think from an attitude standpoint, I would caution and say, don't get into, like, honestly, I feel like a lot of SDRs or salespeople want to get into marketing because they're tired of quotas and numbers. And they feel like, marketing is this pushy job where, month to month pressures are not there and bosses are not like railing you all the time, which might be true, but I feel like that's, an escapist motivation, and a good marketing person will see right through that. So, you never get hired into a marketing position if your motivation is to have a pushy job. I have had a dozen SDRs come to me in my career, and through some shape or form, really kind of just want to move to marketing for this one reason. And I don't think I've hired any one of them. I've hired a few SDRs into my marketing org, but not a single person who wanted to run away from their quotas.
Cool. Good to know. Let's say if a few SDRs were to approach you today after watching this show, would you be open to speaking to them for a position in marketing?
Absolutely. I mean, I mean, different strokes for different folks. I think there are certain roles within marketing that definitely, especially product marketing, that people with a sales or an SDR background fit into really well. Given that I am convinced that they can offer this insight that I expect a good product marketer to have, I'm absolutely open to the idea.
Okay. I have a follow-up question. Have you ever hired, let's say, somebody who does not have any background in sales or marketing whatsoever, and you've hired them in your team as a like entry level marketing position?
Possibly, like I think we've hired people from like a custom. I mean, one, we obviously hired freshers in different organizations that I've worked at. So
Right.
freshers for sure. Also people with a background in, I think I remember early on, like we hired people with backgrounds in hospitality as well, like people who had worked in hotels or restaurants and stuff like that. So we hired that.
Got it.
Um, and we've also hired sort of customer care operations folks into marketing on a few occasions.
Got it. I think I can see why you're saying that, because I think when my first leader hired me, I think he hired me for pretty much the same reasons, given that I had a background in hospitality plus like 4 or 5 years into customer service. So I think I kind of got selected because of primarily those principles. So I know what you mean. A last question for you. What is one thing which you would want sales to learn from marketing?
I would like them to learn how to work with others. I think most sales organizations that I've worked with, my one criticism of them is while they're more or less without failure, very, very competent and very good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
As organizations, individuals maybe good or bad, but I think organizations that I work for, all very competent, all very good. But almost every sales team I've ever interacted with has a well-deserved reputation for being very hard to work with. And I think if you are a sales organization, I don't know if that's necessarily very good for you. So at the very least, you want to kind of step back and say, what can we do to make ourselves easier to work with? Because I feel like that's where the job of being a salesperson gets very monotonous, because when you are down, there is nobody in the organization really looking to help you out.
Fair point. I think, yeah, that's something. So I worked with the leaders who were actually, earlier I used to report in marketing, then I reported into sales. So I think I've seen both the sides. So I know what you mean. Like how, especially, for example, for my focus right now, for example, is an outbound. I think while I want to depend on marketing for the inbound leads, of course, but I think for outbound, I think I know what you mean. Like how should a leader, for example, function without marketing in place? I'm not saying that I don't get help from marketing. I think I get a ton of help, but at the same time, I think you can probably learn to grow without them as well. So yeah, I think fair point. Cool. Thank you so much, Shobhit. It was a fantastic chat. I'm pretty sure a lot of SDRs are gonna, a lot of viewers who are actually watching this will enjoy this. At the same time, I'm sure you're gonna get a lot of applications. People I know who are into SDR role for a long time, and then the pandemic has kind of pushed them to stay on that role for a longer time because companies are not probably promoting them anymore or giving them more opportunities, and they're also kind of scared. Some of them are kind of bored and they wanna try different things. A lot of SDRs I know in the past have come to me that they want to move to marketing, but honestly, I had no idea how to probably tell them. Luckily, few of the previous companies I worked with, they kind of had this structure where they could move to other departments. But good to know that there are people like you who would welcome SDRs and people with that sort of mindset to give them an option, give them an opportunity in marketing. So that's definitely a great job. Anything else would you like to maybe say as a last thing to the viewers?
No, I think, I didn't finish the whole answer on conversational sales and marketing. You asked me how sales and marketing leaders can train teams. So I talked about hiring. I think once you hire people, it's also really important to help your SDRs or reps understand your customers in depth as people. I don't think we do that enough, right? I think whether that involves, very simple, very small things, right now travel is restricted, but please, if travel is open, if your primary market is the US or UK, allow your SDRs or sales reps to travel frequently there, stay there for a week or two, maybe go to one of these car rental services, maybe go to an event and interact with these people, because they really need to understand these people as human beings. Who are they, how they're made of, what are they made out of, what do they respond to. I think one very common example that I found is people who grew up in India are very respectful of people in positions of director, or so they're always very high sir, and they want to offend them. Whereas if you've heard for any amount of time in the US, that's not the culture there at all. And I don't know how you can train a bunch of young people in India to understand and respect that sort of culture which exists in the US without really exposing them to travel. You can't watch that on Netflix, or you can't see that on a PowerPoint. So yeah, encourage people to travel, encourage them to interact with these folks in their free time. One good practice could be to allow them the first 5 minutes on a sales call. It's very annoying for me when I get on a call, when an SDR does a lot of hard work and gets me on a call, and then the minute I get on the call, they're like, oh, so here's my sales rep, and they're going to take over, and then one slide pulls up, and that person it's really, really irritating as a buyer. I can say that for sure. And I think sales leaders need to think more about that. They need to expose these people to the customers that they're selling to, give them the opportunity to have conversations with them so that they get better at it. And then our sales team can come in and do whatever they need to do.
No, that's absolutely a fair point. So one of the thing, and your point is absolutely right. I think you should travel as much as you can. And I think in the past, what I've done is whenever I had an opportunity to travel, I would rather send my reps, because I think they would probably learn a lot. Because anyways, I think I've stayed in US for some time. I've been into customer service. So I think I've probably been trained formally, I might say. So I think I've already learned that side. So I don't need to maybe brush on that. I think your point is bang on. I think my leader also was of the same thought that, we should send as many SDRs as possible. And we did not even used to run contests like some of the companies do that, we will only send you if you hit your quota. We would send everybody, everybody would get a turn. So there was no partiality or anything. So your point is bang on. I think until the pandemic doesn't end, what I would suggest maybe anybody, and this is something I have done as an SDR, is I would spend once a week, an hour or 30 minutes at least with an SDR who is actually in US, so that I can understand, I can see how he's operating, the tech stack he's using, everything, whatever is possible to, let's say, to succeed as a US rep. Because at the end of the day, we are selling to US, right? So it makes sense for us to get to understand their culture, get to understand, for example, how they talk. I would listen to every cold call recording, for example, possible, like when the US rep is selling to US leader, right? What I would do is I would reach out to sales leaders. I think there's a podcast which my team heard a couple of days ago, where we heard from a sales leader how he would want to be pitched, right? So once you get to understand these, I think these can probably put the barrier. But your point is right. I think nothing works like travel. Nothing works like talking to people in real person. So yeah, that's a great advice. Thank you again.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, Rahul. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching this video. If you liked the video a teeny tiny bit, would you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me what you like? Throw your best insult at me if you did not like any part, and you will be able to improve. I promise you will not offend me. Seems like too much work, right? Let's start with subscribing, and let me know in the comments what I should cover next. Thanks again.